Fiona Horne, everybody. Hello, Fiona. How are you?
Hi, Harold. I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I heard about your 18th publication in the numerous Oracle decks. And, you have such a fascinating career and the scope of, contemporary witchcraft, that one cannot unnotice. So tell me, what have you been up to? Like, you've been working really, really hard. Tell me about that new book.
Well, I have been on a book tour in Australia for the last month, and it's still happening, for my new book, Coven Where Witches Gather, and its companion oracle, Coven Oracle. Um, I think it's my 18th book. I mean, honestly, Harold, lost count. I think even my publishers have lost count because I've been with my current publisher, Rockpool Publishing, for about 7 or 8 years now. But prior to that, I was with a bunch of other publishers like I don't know, Random House and HarperCollins and Simon and Schuster, though, but Rockpool's through Simon and Schuster now. So I mean, I don't know. I just feel very blessed to be, in a place where you can actually have a beautiful book like this with its incredible production value of the gorgeous green and gorgeous design and layout and format and all these beautiful things and the opportunity to keep sharing information about modern witchcraft and how we're evolving as a community, certainly through this book, Coven, what it's like to be a witch or even witch curious, magically minded, and gathering with intention and experiencing the magical life that you can if you do that.
What do you think the biggest transitions from contemporary witchcraft in modern times is from the 90s to 2026?
I just think it's so massive now. I mean, even in the 90s, where there was the wave of interest in witchcraft that was very much anchored in pop culture with shows like, you know, oh, you're Charmed. I mean, I look back at that time. It's when I sort of came out of the broom closet in 1997. My first book was published in 1998, but I'd been identifying and practicing witchcraft and identifying as witch since I was 18. So that's born 66. What's the math? That's sometime in the 80s, you know, 12 years before I became known in the public eye as a witch. Um, So I think now what's changed is it's just so massive, and I think the mainstream perception of what it is to be witch has changed. I never get asked if I'm a white witch or a black witch or a good witch or a bad witch anymore. If I'm doing morning TV in Australia here, like the morning show, it's like the number one mainstream morning show in Australia, and they've got me on. They say, "Well, Fiona's touring her 18th book, and it's a coven where witches gather, and tell us about what that's like when witches gather together, Fiona." And it's all very respectful, and it's not there's no one's trivializing it or anchoring it in stereotypes that are outmoded. I think obviously there are male witches and men drawn to the spiritual magical life. But I think modern witchcraft has become increasingly, and it always has been, but increasingly now a path uh, for independence and sovereignty and empowerment for women. And I think that's really a beautiful evolution of its role as we move out of the dominant patriarchal mindset of many centuries. And that's where witchcraft has a beautiful, I mean, I love how it's fused in so many ways now with the wellness movement. I don't consider that a watering down or a trivializing of it, that modern witchcraft, magical living, the accoutrement that we would use, whether it's candles, crystals, herbs, oils, phases of the moon, signs, symbols, sacred geometry, all of it that's just part of what we've been doing for a really long time, is now, so embraced by the wellness movement in the mainstream West and also across the East too, because I've been living in Egypt for most of the last few years, and a lot of my Egyptian girlfriends are really into all of this stuff too. So it's I love that it's since the 90s. I don't think it's something to be dismissed or trivialized anymore. There's a lot of respect for the modern witch, and that's good.
Where could our viewers get where the witches gather? Is there a particular publisher? I mean, we can definitely find it
Oh
on your
yeah, there's
website.
that. Well, I mean, Rockpool, Simon Schuster. It's everywhere. Any major, any bookstore you like, any indie or mainstream bookstore, your favorite occult esoteric bookstore has copies of Coven Where Witches Gather and the companion Coven Oracle, and you might even get last year's. It's one of my favorite babies too, Lost Book of Spells, which I love this book so much. And if you see, as we look at the screen here, they go together. So there's actually going to be a third in this series. I'm excited to be offering a third book to the series that'll be coming out in January 2028. You have the scoop, Harold. The third book, the working title is Bewitched. So it's almost like I've written them backwards. There's the book for the solitary practitioner coming last. There's the group book in the middle. And then Lost Book of Spells with all the books I'd written. I'd never actually compiled everything together as far as spellcasting, ritual work, and magical crafting advice. And it's in this book. So another beautifully designed volume by the incredible Rockpool. I mean, just the way it is. I love that there's been a return to people's fascination with actual books and not and people feeling a little bit disillusioned with the constant scrolling on our smartphones and everything. And I think that's another reason why I wrote Where Witches Gather, Coven Where Witches Gather, and created a companion oracle deck to go with it so that we could put our devices down and come together, even though we're using devices now to communicate. So there's always a wonderful role for them. However, there's nothing quite like the alchemy that occurs when people come together like-mindedly and do ceremony or crafting or ritual work or just simply eat a meal with shared magical intention.
They're definitely like beautiful looking books, for sure. Um, the title's very interesting. So tell me, like in a nutshell, and I don't want to spoil the book at all, but where do witches gather?
I would offer that the subtitle of the book Where Witches Gather is that you can create your coven anywhere, your tribe anywhere, your people anywhere. And what I've heard from individuals that have been reading the book have said that it's not only great for people with magical intention, but it's also really helpful. There's helpful advice in here for navigating group dynamics, whether it's a family, a group of friendships, your co-workers. There's a whole lot of advice on how to enjoy and be intentional when you are with groups of people. And not only is there is advice in here about incorporating as a church if you want to. And look, I'd turn to the page straight away. Incorporating as a spiritual organization and the various benefits, and that's anchored in American and Australian advice, but also traveling together and even deciding where to gather together. Here's the thing right here. Finding a safe, welcoming space for your coven gatherings can be a delicate task. There are sanctuaries established, but you also, I offer here, there's private backyards, large living rooms, private balconies, community halls, pagan-friendly retreats, avoid public parks, vacant properties. There's some practical stuff like that too, but there's also a whole section on how to gather digitally, even though I'm inviting people to put their devices down and come together in person as a healing effort after our COVID years, which still resonate in people's lives when we were all forced to be apart from each other. But also, I think the book offers that wherever you gather with intention, whether you are witch curious or magically minded, that in of itself becomes a sacred space to explore the divine potential of what it is to be human, especially to gather together physically, because our bodies are like electrical circuits, they're portals, they are incredible vehicles for transformational experiences. And it can be this simple, like this book tour that I'm on now, I'm offering workshops and as part of the tour, and even just coming together with intention and breathing and visualizing the breath leaving each person and mingling in the center of the space and feeling that become in itself a tangible tactile egregore of energy that can be experienced and utilized and enjoyed by everyone is there's just so many ways you can enjoy the magic of what it is when you come together, that special alchemy. And that's what's in the book.
Tell me about your book of lost spells. How is that put together, and what is its contents?
Well, Lost Book of Spells came together, believe it or not, many, many years ago when I was working on radio in Australia, and people used to call in for spells. So there's any number of different, requests that could come in, like help for stopping smoking, um, for a child having problems with another child at school, a spell to make a child tell the truth. Um, I mean, it's just, there's so many. Uh, to release migraine causing control issues, pain potion, help to stop snoring, a witch's recipe for removing freckles. I mean, spell for happiness. Everything and anything is in here because people would call in, um, and spell for better sleep and and happier days. People would call in with questions and I would give them spells on the spot. So when I kept all those on a website, and then that was a spell book, and then when my website was redesigned, FionaHorne.com was redesigned, that spell book on the website went away, and I found it again. Well, actually through an old friend, found it online, and then was able to write more and incorporate more of the learnings of the last 20 years. And that's what the book is. It's also got sections at the front about how spell casting made simple, but not to trivialize it, how to make sure the spells you cast work. Like that's about service and identifying that a spell will work if you make it more than about your own finite egoic needs. If you do it as an act of service in some way, how others or something, a situation could benefit from your improved circumstances. If you do this spell, for example, then the universe will always conspire to help bring it into fruition. And there's information here, creating a sacred space to make magic, how to perform a smudging ritual, using the term smudging as a in a non-cultural appropriated way, just offering that it's about in the Australian Aborigines, the First Nations people of this country that I'm in right now, use the eucalyptus leaf smoke, thick smoke, to clear space, to congeal to negative toxic energies and release them. There's advice here on substituting ingredients, tips on candle magic, and and my best advice after 30 years of spell casting, which if you want to know what that is, you can check out the book. But it's I love that people have found it a really useful item on their magical library shelf, because there's something in it for any possible. There's over like 150 spells and over 200 pieces of magical advice forged in 40 years of practice.
So, in the witchcraft and pagan community, I interview and work with a lot of aspiring pagan musicians, so to speak. And everybody wants to big break in things. And it's no secret that in the 1990s, you were part of a rock band that was really like innovation.
Yeah,
Because
we had a good run, yeah. And it was
in the
quite unique what we
90s,
did, yeah.
there wasn't a lot of witchcraft or pagan themes music really available. So my question is, what would be your advice to modern aspiring pagan musicians?
Wow. Well, I think one of the divine purposes of what it is to be human is to create art, to create music. I mean, we're so blessed, and energy, frequency. I mean, I offer sound healing experiences when I take my ladies, so I take ladies traveling around the world, and I take them inside the Great Pyramid and offer a sound ceremony in there. And just, the energy, the vibration of sound is in that space is particularly acute and extraordinary. Um, so any music is transformational, and it is a divine gift to be able to create. So if you're a witchy pagan musician, it's just such a different scene out there now. I taught myself to play guitar. There was no social media. I just did tons of gigs, had an all-girl punk group in the late 80s, early 90s, created Def Effects along with the co-founder, and we we had hits in America and Australia, and my song lyrics were very witchy, magical. There was a song called Spiral Dance, The Wise Witch Wove Her Dreams, spinning coiled ropes of silver that wound around the trees. There was a song, As Above, So Below, Is the Universe, So the Soul. I was singing that in the early 90s in a rock band. No one really picked it up. They just, no one overtly asked me anything about my esoteric or magical life when I was in that band, not until the very, very end when we did an album called Magic. And there were songs called I'll Be Your Magic and Spell on You. And eventually someone had to ask, what is it? What's this interest you have when you write your lyrics? But I think for advice for young bands now, I think just loving what you do. And the difference now is you can get your music out, but it's the volume of it and the ability for the individual artist to have their music heard outside of the traditional ways back in the day of getting a record deal and being played on radio. And it's all so massively different now. My band had 3 big record deals with EMI, Universal, and we had an independent deal as well that was really big in Australia. So, but it's changed so much. So I mean, I did a solo album called Witch Web in the mid 2000s, 2010. That just came out on Spotify recently. The record company found the recording tapes or whatever, the digital tapes, and put them on Spotify. And this Casting Circle song on that, and Dark Goddess, which is an ode to Lilith as the patron goddess of my coven. And there's just so much stuff. So I don't even know what to say, Harold, except just do it. Do it because you love it. I personally I've been on stages where I've had literally 10,000 people screaming my name. And I've walked out, and the roar, it just takes the top of your head off. You feel that energy coming across you like a massive wave of just this elixir of excitement and passion and magic, and but I have also loved just doing small gigs for friends, family, the local community. So I
Do you
think
have
it's about you can do a gig in front of a massive audience, and you can have a number one song with millions of people listening to it. And if you're not happy on the inside, I mean, it doesn't hit you, it doesn't affect you in a way that you think you would expect. It doesn't solve all your problems.
Can I ask you
If
who
you,
your
if,
patron
yeah.
your can I ask you who your patron god and goddess are, or who you work with now, and has that
Oh,
changed through the years?
it's so different now. I mean, when I mentioned Lilith, then that was because she was the patron goddess of my coven that I created, and and was a part of, gosh, in the early 2000s in Los Angeles when I lived there. And I lived in America prior to COVID for most of all those years, and that's when I did all my flight training for my work as a commercial pilot, was in Los Angeles. So when I more recently, a goddess that spoke to me and told me to take women on nourishing spiritual adventures was Sekhmet in Egypt, and that was in the Temple of Philae in the Chapel of Iset, or Isis. So Sekhmet would be the one that I have been most connected with and felt a tangible communication with, and she was the one that told me to bring women to Egypt. This happened when I was in Egypt 3.5 years ago. Bring women to Egypt, take them to certain places, show them and teach them that the gods are not, and the god, she used one word in English. She spoke to me, she used one word, God, to describe all of it. And she used that English word. She said, the gods are not to be demanded of. We are to be worshipped and venerated, and we will decide what it is that you need. And so she said, tell the women this, show them how to do this, take them to these places and move here, live in Egypt. And so I did all those things. I moved to Egypt in 2023, and I lived there for most of the last 3 years. I still have all my stuff there, but I'm currently in Australia touring. All my animal rescue work currently is anchored in Egypt, cats, dogs, and camels. And I'll get back to Egypt in the second half of this year.
My very last question for you is, there's lots of younger aspiring witches and Wiccans, magic users of all types, and there's no doubt about it, You're a pagan and witchcraft superstar. Many people will be very, very inspired by your story and things and the amount of accomplishments you've had in life. What would be your advice to younger witches on the path?
I would offer, I trust if I don't know how to answer a question, I ask spirit, what is the answer? Because so much comes into my head straight away. And the first thing that came to speak was self-care is powerful magic. So the being a modern witch, identifying as witch, is not a statement of what you do or how others perceive you, but how you live your life, how you respect and honor yourself and the choices you make as a divine creature in this planet, and then how you share the gifts, your lessons, your journey with others in a way that inspires and empowers them. And in some ways, I think I've been like sober in a program for 14 years now almost, and there's an element of that coming together in community with support, holding space for each other, honoring sovereignty, honoring autonomy, but also holding safe space collectively with respect, is, I think, one of the most interesting ways you can be a witch, because then you can learn with and from each other. Even people you don't agree with you can learn, even if it's to learn to remove yourself from that circle or influence. Um, so I would offer that, but it's so funny because like it's, I can look back and just think of, my past is a lot longer than my future now. I'm 60 this year, and it's like, and I know there's probably a few years left in me, in this physical form. Yet the past is so much longer than the future. Yet I can look at it all and reflect on it like it was yesterday, and look at the choices that I made. And I think the biggest difference for me now is, back when I was younger as a witch, I felt I needed to approval and acceptance and to, do it correctly. And now I just am it. I don't question anything.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Witchcraft TV platform on Roku Television and
Thanks for
sharing
having
your.
me, Harold. I really hope that your initiative here continues to blossom and grow. And at Roku, it's really fun.
Okay.
And it's a
Thank you so
lovely
much.
service. Cheers. Thank you so much. See ya.